Living in a broken world with anxiety. Do you ever wonder if the Bible's out of date? Is the world so different now that it doesn't apply to all areas of our life anymore? No, I get it. Sometimes the church has a hard time understanding things like mental illness and emotional disorders and such. That's not God. That's not the Bible. That's people. You see, even if the church misses the mark when dealing with mental illness or struggles of that nature, God has not left you without help, without knowing it is a real struggle. Does it surprise you to hear this? As much as we may think our struggles are new, or the things we face they didn't have to deal with way back 2,000 years ago. The truth is these things are real and have always been around. We may have better diagnosis these days, but the struggles have always been there, and God does not want us to struggle. He doesn't ever want us to feel alone, as do many in that time of struggle and challenge. Let's look at some of these things we face, and perhaps we can find hope in all of it. Have you ever worried about money? I have. My mother wrote the book on that. Even at the very end of her life, that worry about not having enough money drove her into such bitterness and anxiety and frustration. She would spend like the proverbial drunken sailor, but then fret over not having enough to do it again. It was very confusing, and as a result, my money handling skills truly suck. Now, we need money in this world. We've traded the concept of thriving and living by providing for ourselves and trading our excess for other stuff we need to instead seek to amass as much wealth as we can. I mean, it's a sickness like anything else. But to reiterate, we need money, food, clothing, shelter, and so on. We can't live without it, but it is possible to live without it being the reason to live. Is it possible to be content and happy with less and not worry and fret over it? It really causes a lot of anxiety, don't you think? The money stress thing. Is anyone familiar with the parable of the sower? Are we familiar with what the sower did? Basically, a farmer planting and sowing seeds. That's what a sower was. It speaks to the word of truth being sown on different types of ground. As a sower would plant seeds, it speaks of a few types, but the one that I want to look at here is the thorns and thistles. Does anyone grow stuff? Vegetables, flowers, etc.? What happens when you take good seeds and plant them in the middle of thick weeds and thistles? See what Jesus has to say about it. Mark 4:18-19, he says, "Now these are the ones sown among thorns. They are the ones who hear the word, and the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches and the desire for other things entering in choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful." You see what Jesus is saying here. When we focus so much of our cares, like so much on the cares of the world and this part of our life, we end up choking out what is important. We focus on needs at the beginning, but that often leads to focusing on wants. And face it, the world out there wants us to be broke, but to seek riches, and it drives us insane at times, doesn't it? I walked away from a 6-figure job to go and work for a friend for much less. But my life became richer. Do you know that what God did then? Put me in a position with even less money, but offered me freedom from the trappings of the world and helped me to reconnect with my wife by reasonable working hours and allowing me to expand the work of the ministry that has got my heart. I mean, I was making $90,000, $100,000 a year. I was always anxious, like demonically anxious. I was always working. There was never enough, and I'm sure heart attack was on the menu if I stayed on that path. Money was not the problem, my focus was. Now, I still have anxiety over things. So I did not get this, lightning bolt zap miracle cure. But what I did get was the ability to see hope again and see what contentment felt like again. This is just the money worry, which looks different for everyone. That's just my story. I'm sure we all have one. This bankrupt world wants us to join it. So we see that anxiety can turn to fear, or even come from fear. It even helps push us into making poor decisions. After all, fear and rational thinking don't generally occupy the same space. We, as children of the living God, however, have been given some help in this area. In the Apostle Paul's final letter to Timothy, he reminds him of many valuable truths. I'm especially fond of this one in 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. As I mentioned, fear and sound mind just don't get along. We'll get a little deeper into that in a few minutes. Let's look at one more example of anxiety and its effects. Have you ever worried about having people over to your house? What will they think about you and your home? Cleaning and cooking to make sure everything is just absolutely perfect. Just tripping over yourself because you want everything to be just right. So overcome with stress and worry about it. We all do it. The holidays, right? We do the freak out, right? Oh, is everything right? Are the curtains in the right place? Is the dog groomed perfectly? Whatever it is. We do perhaps put a little too much into what people may think of us and our life and such. Once again, this is not a new thing. It's not specific to our part of the world or place in the timeline. Martha, for example, Lazarus' sister, was apparently acquainted with this type of anxiety. Let's give you a lead up. Jesus was teaching. He had just finished with a parable, and then this happened. So keep in mind, Jesus, the Son of God, imagine him in your house teaching. It's mind-blowing. Luke 10:38-40. It says, "Now it happened as they went that he entered a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she called her sister Mary, who sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she approached him and said, 'Lord, do you not care that my sister left me to serve alone? Therefore tell her to help me.'" Okay. So it appears they recognized there was something special about Jesus. Clearly, Martha did not yet realize or know that she was speaking with the Son of the living God at this very moment when she tells him to correct her sister's behavior. Why do you suppose Martha was acting this way? Frantically trying to get things done, focusing on the little things, while God is in the living room. Do we do this? Do we get caught up in our anxiety over situations when we take our eyes off of what is truly important in order to focus on the bits and pieces of life that can probably wait? Does your anxiety and anxiousness lead us away from what is important in order to be distracted by that which may be of some importance to some degree, but maybe not as important as we think it is at the moment? Let's break it down. Jesus walked in this world. He made himself subject to the things of humanity, fatigue and hunger, etc. So yes, he was probably hungry and needed to eat. But he was teaching and offering all in that place a taste of the bread of life. One is of temporal importance, but the other is of eternal importance. So you decide which could wait. Let's see what God has to say about this. As written and recorded in Luke 10:41-42. Jesus answered and said to her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her." Seems to me that that's pretty clear, huh? So what does this mean? Ignore your struggle and read the Bible instead? Or pray on everything, pray, and everything will just be instantly better? Mm, let me ask you this. Have you ever worried a trouble away? Like worried so much that the struggle you were facing just up and vanished? Probably not, huh? Jesus was speaking specifically about worry and anxiety in these next verses. So yes, it happened way back then. Luke 12:25. And which of you, by worrying, can add 1 cubit to his stature? It's metaphorically speaking. Like, can you worry yourself into being taller? No. You know, talk about making a point. By the way, a cubit is about 18 inches, elbow to the tips of the finger on the average sized person. So, but when you hear this, it's almost laughable in a way, right? Jesus is extremely good at making a point and showing how useless worry is. To be in fact, he addresses many things in this teaching moment. Listen to this from Luke 12:29. And do not seek what you should eat or what you should drink, nor have an anxious mind. Who wants an anxious mind? I have it lots of times. It really is not good. I certainly don't want it. I've spent a lot of time in my life with an anxious mind. I watched it destroy my mother and many others I care about. So let's begin this journey home with this problem of anxiety. Jesus is not saying for us not to deal with or avoid troubles and struggles. Not at all. What he is saying is, for one thing, give them the priority they deserve, but don't be consumed by them. When bad things happen, we need to deal with things. Who do you want helping you? Like a level-headed person or a frantic, lunatic-y type person? It's like in the movies, you know, when you're surrounded by bad guys or zombies or vampires or whatever it may be, you have the hero. Cool, calm, collected. Let's call him the Liam Neeson character. No matter how bad the situation gets, the guy's always got a plan. Then, you always got this other character, right? You got that frantic, screaming, running around like a chicken with his head cut off character. We're going to call him the Kevin Hart character. And I'm sorry if these men are offended, but I think they make great examples. Always freaking out, no plan, just run off his mouth and panic. I mean, we've seen them in the movies, and we know these are the characters they play. Obviously not like that in real life, but they're great examples in these situations. Now, who do you want to follow? The calm guy with the plan, or the guy freaking out and running around? Same problem, but different approaches. Now, turning to God may not just wipe away all your anxiety, but perhaps it will help us deal with and cope with it. So we can resolve the struggle we face causing the anxiety in the first place. As I alluded to earlier, fear tends to move in when we get anxious, doesn't it? And we have not been given a spirit of fear, right? What did we get again? Oh yeah, sound mind. Who gave it to us? Right, Jesus. So, when we turn to fear and anxiety, we take our eyes off of, that's right, Jesus. At the end of the day, much of that anxiety comes from focusing on the wrong things in life or giving them more time and space than they deserve. Again, we struggle, stuff happens, and we need to deal with it. Sometimes we need medical intervention to address extreme anxiety. But even when we do, what is the result? A calmer mind, right? Some of us sometimes need a little extra help from a friend, a doctor, but often we can get the release from spending time with, focusing on God, spending time with Him. And the things that are important in life, the bonus is he always has a way to deal with stuff, as well as helping provide a calm mind. So let me leave you with this piece of godly wisdom straight from the mouth of Jesus, from the Gospel of Luke. It's a bit longer, but hold tight and listen closely to these words. Then he said to his disciples, "Therefore I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, nor about the body, what you will put on. Life is more than food, and the body is more than clothing. Consider the ravens, for they neither sow nor reap, which have neither storehouse nor a barn, and God feeds them. Of how much more value are you than the birds? And which of you, by worrying, can add 1 cubit to his stature? If you then are not able to do the least, why are you anxious for the rest? Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I say to you that even Solomon in all of his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothes the grass, which today is in the field and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O you of little faith? And do not seek what you should eat or what you should drink, nor have an anxious mind. For all these things the nations of the world seek after. But your Father knows that you need these things. But seek, here's the kicker, the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added to you. Do not fear, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell what you have, give alms, provide yourselves money bags which do not grow old, treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches nor moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. God loves you. Go in peace and lean onto the eternal hope that he offers, not the frantic, fearful anxiety that the world gives. God bless.